You Can't Be 12 Forever, written by Derwin Gerald Lester II, performed by the author, published by DGL2 Publications. Year 3. The boy woke up and he was afraid. It was the nightmare, the old nightmare where he would die, but in a different way each time. He didn't know why he kept having them, but the boy would go through his death each night. It wasn't fair, he always told himself, but nothing in life was. His mother died because of the nightmares. She didn't have the strongest heart. His father died from the nightmares too, but that was more due to the rope cutting off his airflow than anything else. So that left him alone in the camps, all by himself, with the other dirty, smelly people. The boy hated them because he hated his life and what had happened to the world. That was okay, his one friend told him. It was an old man who remembered the old world better. It's okay to be miserable because so much of life is spent in misery. That's often a defining trait in one's life, the amount of misery endured. It can make you into a great leader to stop the bad guys from hurting others, or it would cause you to ruin everything around you with your anger and make the problem worse, all because you didn't learn how to manage your misery. He asked the old man once how people managed their misery before. The old man laughed and said by burning herbal supplements. He didn't understand what the old man was talking about, but that was okay. The old man watched out for him, and that was all that mattered. The camps were a strange place. At least that's what the old man kept saying. People didn't used to be this way in this part of the world. In the camps, they eat each other in the dark and kill in blind daylight and laugh like it's funny. It didn't happen as much before, or at least they didn't get away with it. The old man kept using the word civilized, but the boy didn't know what the man meant by that. The only time he heard the phrase civilized was when they were talking, over the air or on the screens. The boy used to watch them, at least when they first came and put them all into camps. The morning after the city was walled off, they blasted from their loudspeakers, "The old ways are what brought your people here. Left to your own devices, your people would stagnate and kill one another. We bring hope and change, the peace of the true understanding. Accept this peace and become one of us. Then you will be free." On that day the old man laughed and said, "Yeah, they brought change all right." 3 days later he would pass someone in the camps and move his hands in a weird pattern, and they would both smile. The next day there would be an explosion near one of the guard towers, and they would be angry. The old man would laugh in that scary way he did when they died. "They think they're invincible," the old man would say. "We'll see." Time passed in the camps. The boy wasn't sure how long. When they had a free moment, the old man would teach the boy stuff. He called it his oorah, training sessions. They would go over how to set things called improvised explosive devices, or what to do when entering a building, and absolutely everything inside the building must die. Things the old man told him he needed to know when he was older, because they would be counting on him. "You can't be 12 forever," the old man said. "But I want to be 12 forever," the boy replied. The old man smiled and said, "Don't we all?" Then one day the old man came up to the boy and said, "Time to go." There was an explosion off in the distance. It was so far away that the boy wasn't even sure if he heard it. The 6 that followed were loud enough. Then there were screams, some from the people in the camps, some from them. There was gunfire. The old man took him to meet several men with guns. Those men wore matching jackets, pants, boots, and hats. The boy had never seen anything like it, and the old man had never looked so happy. The tallest of the matching men walked up to the old man. "Sergeant Major," he asked, "you were at D.C., right?" The old man laughed and said, "A long time ago." Then another explosion went off. The boy held the old man's hand tight out of fear. It was one of those times that the old man kept talking about. The days had happened maybe 6 or 7 times in your life where events could go any which way. The old man looked to the tallest matching man and said, "We need to get him out of here. How long are you looking at?" The tall man looked at his watch and said, "We have an escape route for maybe another 6 hours, but that might close fast. The George Washington Bridge got destroyed yesterday, so we're going to have to go through the city itself. Is the boy going to be able to make it that far? The old man looked down at the boy and smiled. He'll make it. He's from good American stock. Year 12. The boy had grown up to be a man. The old man had died in the escape from the camps while completing his fondest wish, doing something unbelievably stupid, but in a heroic way. The man thought that might have been the Marine Corps' unofficial motto. After they got out of New York City, he went straight to a training camp in Mexico to learn how to be an officer. The man had lost count of how many times he had done something stupid but heroic in the name of God and country. The man had lost count how many times he had done something stupid but heroic in the name of God and country. But that was how wars were won, which was the name of the game to the Marines down in Central America. They couldn't survive that far south due to being unable to They couldn't survive that far south due to the high temperatures. The old man told him that the Marines would send him to the hottest places on earth because that's where Marines felt most at home. When Paris Island was taken from them, they made a new home in Mexico. The man didn't enjoy it, but little of life was meant for enjoyment. Most of their lives were meant to deprive them of enjoyment. After the man got back from a mission in Indiana, he was sent to a briefing with other important men like himself. The topic was that there might be a way to kill all of them. Some sort of insect venom combined with another toxin combined with a chemical. The specifics the man didn't understand, but he didn't need to. Whatever the smart guys had made down in Honduras was a game changer, if not a game ender. And from what he was told, all that would be left would be to burn their bodies. They just had to make it to their headquarters in Anchorage, get into a ship and disperse the package into the air. Then 3 weeks later, the man would be out of a job. He often thought of the concept of unemployment and smiled. He remembered the first time he smiled, truly smiled like the old man used to. It was the nightmare again, just like every single night. He was being chased by them in the old camps that he grew up in when he was a boy, and they were going to kill him. But in the dream, he was stopped by the old man. The old man whispered in his ear, "Turn around." He looked up at the old man, afraid. The old man nodded. The boy turned and saw what had been chasing him all this time, and it was small. The boy laughed as he had his hands around its throat. Then he woke up and smiled, just like the old man smiled when they blew up a guard post. It was then he knew that winning wasn't only possible, but inevitable. He was coming back from the briefing when a little boy who worked in the kitchen asked him if they could be killed. The man laughed and said, "Follow me." He took the boy to his office where they kept the 3D footage of close combat encounters. The man looked at the boy and asked, "Have you ever been to Indianapolis?" The boy shook his head. "Well, I just came from there." The man opened the file that said Indianapolis, and the room became a 3D resemblance of a very quiet place. The boy looked up at the man, confused. He smiled and said, "Hey, come on, I want to show you something." They walked over to an area where the sounds of a fire, a loud crackle. They walked over to an area where there were the sound. They walked over to an area hearing the sounds of a fire, a loud crackle that stood out against the quiet in defiance. a loud crackle that stood out against the quiet in defiance. The boy found the fire and saw the Marines throwing them into the flames, tossing each dead body with tired victory. The man turned to the boy and said, "Anything, no matter how scary it might seem, can be killed." The boy stared at the fire, mesmerized. "Can I kill them too?" he asked. The man smiled and said, "If you want." "How old are you now?" The boy thought about it and said, "I'm 12. The man nodded with a strange sense of remembrance and told him, "Well, you can't be 12 forever, can you?" Year 70. Year 70. Year 70. It was many years later, and the man had become an old man. A boy walked next to him, a man who his father called Grandpa. The boy didn't know much about the old man, except for all the cool stuff he had on his walls. There was a room in the back that the boy wasn't supposed to go into, although he went in there from time to time. It was covered in pictures mostly. Thank you letters, things like that. There was a binder under the old man's bed that read classified, but his father said it was just a bunch of dirty old photos from the women he rescued in the camps. The boy asked his father, "Why don't we clean the photos if they're dirty, Papa?" The boy asked his father, "Why don't we clean the photos if they're dirty, Papa?" His father laughed and said, "I don't know. I don't think he'd like that." The boy asked his father, "Well, why don't we clean the photos if they're dirty, Papa?" His father laughed and said, "I don't know, man. I don't think he'd like that." The boy didn't understand, but that didn't matter. The old man would sit the boy down and tell him about how life was before they were all killed. The boy wasn't sure who they were. "A lesson," the old man said. And it took us a very long time to learn what they came here to teach us. There will always be those who think they can live your life for you if you let them. They'll come at you in different forms, promising different things. The trick is to live your life for yourself. You come from a very special people. We have a proud history of not doing what we're told by those who think they know better. So learn from them, but when you're older. How old are you now? The boy replied, "I'm 12. The boy replied, "I'm 12. The old man laughed and said, "Well, you know what? I think you can be 12 for a little while longer." The end.